welcome. We are here to talk about the Elk Grove Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Trails Master Plan update. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We always appreciate your time. We have a big group who's joined us today. Clearly it's an exciting topic and we're looking forward to chatting with you. My name's Gladys Cornell and I'm with AIM Consulting, and we are helping GHD in the city of Elk Grove with the public engagement process for this important study. So before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that you are on mute, and that's so that we can have a conversation without a lot of interruptions with background noise and everything. So please feel free to use the chat box. It's available. If you have questions, you have comments, don't hesitate to fill in your information there. And then we will, at the end of the presentation, we will go through the chat box and make sure we get to as many questions as we possibly can with the intent to finish at 5 o'clock. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Carrie Whitlock, who is the city's representative for this project.
Hi, I'm going to be quick. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time at the end, both for the presentation and for questions. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. We got great RSVP numbers and we're getting a great number of participants in this, and that's really exciting because we really want to make this the best possible plan for Elk Grove going forward around bicycles, pedestrians, and trails, and make sure that we're doing you know, being responsive to what our residents really want to see with this. So thank you all for joining us. We will be available. We have several city staff members here, and we will be available at the end of the presentation to take questions and have some discussion around what will be in the plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily Shandy. Emily is with GHD. They have been the consultants who have been helping lead this effort with us.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie, and hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. We appreciate your time on this Tuesday afternoon. So I am going to walk through a little bit of the agenda and background for today. We'll go over the project schedule and review some of the high-level project background and the goals that this project and planning process set out to accomplish. And then we'll be offering a little bit of a preview of the draft plan today, highlighting some of the things that the city is really excited to be moving forward through this effort. So we are approaching about a year of working on this project at this point. We started back in January of 2020, documenting existing conditions, looking at analyzing collision data and where there are bicycle and pedestrian facilities and trails in the city today. And then understanding where there are challenges and opportunities by talking to stakeholders and doing community outreach in sort of a first round last spring and summer. And a lot of you may have participated in some of those activities already. We took all of that back with us, worked on developing some recommendations with the project team. And now we're here in fall, winter 2020, reviewing the draft plan as soon as it becomes available. And then we will be working on completing that plan over the next few months as we get into 2021. So the Bicycle and Pedestrian and Trails Master Plan includes an introduction and existing conditions. It includes documentation of those outreach activities that we did, both that have already been done and this round of seeking feedback on the draft plan. And then it has recommendations, which include infrastructure recommendations for new bicycling and walking facilities, and also includes programs, some policy changes, things for the city to consider adopting, as well as an implementation plan that lists ideas for funding and actually prioritizes these projects to help the city focus on what they can do first, where there are opportunities to implement some of these things quickly, and then things like a maintenance plan and some design protocols that they'll be able to implement on a rolling basis moving forward. To make sure that overall the city's bicycling and walking and equestrian environment continues to be useful and continues to be developed as those opportunities come up. Our next steps is this second round of outreach and gathering feedback on that public draft plan. And then ultimately we'll be presenting the final plan to the City Council and Planning Commission for their approval. And Carrie, do you want to talk a little bit about the project background and goals here?
Sure. So if you want to go to the next slide. So some of you maybe have been long-term residents. So we did have a bicycle pedestrian trails plan that was approved in 2014 that combined some earlier separated trails plan and bike pedestrian plan together. And it really was looking at, and what we really wanted to do with this was do an update to the networks, really look at design guidelines and update those, look at what programs do we need to really focus on in addition to the network and the connectivity around the city with these, and also try and really emphasize the 5-year implementation strategy. How can we not just plan for these, but actually get them done? So we also are at the same time looking at, we're redoing the roadway fee program, and so we're separating out a separate active transportation fee program from the roadway fee, and so that's part of this update as well. And so the goals, overall goals for the plan are really around increasing bicycling and walking, supporting a culture where walking and bicycling are safe and they're convenient for all, that, you know, regardless of abilities, people feel comfortable with being able to bike and walk within the city. And part of that is really ensuring that we are improving connectivity and accessibility throughout our network. So the milestones here are really intended to help us as the city benchmark progress towards these goals. So are we actually working on activities that will help us get to meeting these goals over the next 5 years? And so looking at what is needed to do that. I think that is everything in that section. And so I will turn it back over to Emily.
Great. Okay, so we are going to offer a little bit of a preview here of the public draft plan, some of those recommendations and implementation plan topics that will be included when the draft plan is available, which we anticipate to be sometime in the month of February. A couple exciting policy recommendations that are in the draft plan. The city will consider adopting a Vision Zero policy, which is a traffic safety philosophy that says severe injuries and fatalities are preventable and that they're not acceptable. So integrating different approaches, including infrastructure, some safety enforcement, promoting multimodal options, and constantly evaluating how those efforts are lining up against collision rates in the city to make sure that we're working towards zero, towards eliminating those from the network entirely over time. The city is also going to be considering expanding bicycle parking as part of this draft recommendation. So there's a milestone in the plan to double bicycle parking by 2040. Looking at policy changes to uncouple the required bicycle parking standards for development from vehicle parking standards. So starting to look at those independently rather than having them tied together. Providing some better guidance on long-term and short-term bicycle parking, and thinking about event parking for special events where you have large numbers of people congregating all at once, when we're allowed to do that again, and how we can provide better bicycle parking at events like that to support multimodal options. There are also a number of programs recommended in the draft plan that support bicycling and walking by educating the public, not just on bicycling and walking, but also educating drivers, educating transit riders, all modes of transportation, so that we can share the roads safely. So something like a Street Smarts campaign, which can use photographs or artwork. Some communities choose to integrate this into a fun activity at schools by having children participate in drawing safety-themed posters and things like that. And then using that media around the community to promote messages related to safety and sharing the road. Offering bicycle safety education in the community for students as well as for adults to help people learn their rules, the rules of the road, their responsibilities as safe bicyclists. And some encouragement programs to give people the confidence to try walking or try bicycling for transportation where they may not have tried out those things in the past, or encourage people to choose those modes of transportation more often. Some of the program ideas there are listed here. So hiring a bicycle and pedestrian coordinator at the city level, promoting a bike rack program where businesses can request bicycle parking be installed in front of their business, and promoting a bicycle-friendly business program, something like the League of American Bicyclists, which is a nonprofit organization. They run a program that recognizes businesses that make it easier and more convenient and appealing both for employees and for customers or patrons who arrive at the business by bicycle. And then also thinking about safe routes to school as another way to build on the foundation that this bicycle, pedestrian, and trails master plan sets up, and expanding that, supporting the work that the school district in Elk Grove is already doing. So thinking about a safe routes to school coordinator as a standalone position or a partnership between the city and district, developing a safe routes to school plan that focuses more intensively on the area around schools and on routes that children are currently using to get to and from school and how we can make those a little safer. And then thinking about policies, procedures, and programs that are more specifically geared toward the school community to help instigate some mode shift there and getting some of those trips shifted to walking and bicycling. The plan also does include infrastructure recommendations, of course, for bicycling and walking facilities, as well as equestrian trails. A few things that the city is really excited to be moving forward. Class 4 bikeways, which are still relatively new in California, they're protected bikeways. So it's an on-street facility for use by bicyclists, but it includes a vertical barrier element between the bicyclists and the travel lanes for cars. The city has about half a mile of Class 4 bikeways today. This plan right now proposes adding almost 15 new miles of Class 4 bikeways, which is really exciting. Buffered bicycle lanes as well would be entirely new to Elk Grove, but we're proposing almost 30 miles. Those are also on-street facilities, pretty similar to standard bicycle lanes, but instead of just a stripe on the ground between cars and bicyclists, there's a little bit of a buffer space marked out there that just gives the bicycle lane more breathing room, more distance between those bicyclists and moving cars, and can help increase comfort and make the facility more attractive to a broader range of potential bicyclists. Sidewalks, we're also looking at more than 30 miles of new sidewalks being proposed in the draft plan, and about 25 miles of new equestrian trails as well. So really an ambitious and comprehensive plan, which is why we've also undertaken quite a bit of prioritization and evaluation to help the city focus in on the next 5 years and what they can really target first to move this forward. And so we did that by conducting 2 different evaluations. So one is based on some prioritization scoring criteria that look at how well the different infrastructure improvements address certain criteria like safety. Are they close to schools? Do they close gaps? Things like that we'll get to in a moment. The other evaluation is on project complexities. Some of these things will be very straightforward and easy to implement. They include things like paint on the ground or signs, and they don't require widening roads or acquiring additional right-of-way. They're going to be simple and easy to implement and can be done relatively quickly as a result. Other projects will be more complex. They involve more complicated construction. They might require outside funding. They're not as easy for the city to implement. And so those projects get sorted into the longer term or future projects that we know those are going to need a little bit more study, a little bit more planning and prior work before they're ready to go into the ground. And when we combine that with that priority evaluation, we end up with these 4 categories of projects that will help the city focus their efforts in different ways. So short-term projects are those that are high priority and pretty easy to do, that can be folded into the city's capital improvement budget or grouped together, and the city can pursue funding through grant opportunities to implement some of those relatively quickly. There's opportunity projects as well, which are projects that are likely to be relatively easy to implement, but may not score as highly on prioritization. They may not be worth the city pursuing them as independent opportunities, but as development occurs, as other opportunities come up to fold those into existing projects, we have those documented, we know what we want to do, and we're ready to move that forward when the opportunity arises. criteria that we included in the project prioritization reflect a lot of the outreach that we gathered during the early phases of this planning process. So we heard strongly from the community that closing gaps in existing bikeways and trails is really important. So we've emphasized that in this evaluation criteria. Weighting, we also weighted equity quite heavily, looking at the social vulnerability index, which ties into some other processes and efforts that the city uses that same index to. So aligning this plan with those other efforts at the city level, and also making sure that we're looking at equity in a way that provides meaningful differentiation across the city. So these criteria were all carefully selected to make sure that they actually give us different scores for different projects, because if all of your projects score the same on one criteria, it doesn't really help you organize them. Also focusing on safety, we know is very important, and safe routes to schools. So projects that are located near those schools today will help rise those ones to the top as we go through this evaluation process. The implementation plan also includes funding, of course. It includes a list of different funding opportunities that we know are out there that projects in this plan would be eligible for, both competitive grant funding programs and local, state, and regional allocations of formula funding. So some funding that the city will receive that they can decide how they want to allocate that within the city, and then others the city would need to select specific projects and pursue grant funding for those. And so we've described each one of those, as well as described what kind of projects or activities would be eligible for each one and where we think things will be competitive. This plan package also includes some updated design protocols for bicycle, pedestrian, and trail facilities as an appendix to the plan. It addresses on-street bikeways, sidewalks, trails, and bicycle parking, among other things. It also includes facility selection guidance. So helping when we have a road and we know that we want to put a facility there, how do we choose what's the right type of facility? Is it a sidewalk? Is it a separated trail? Is it an on-street bike lane? So some guidance to help support that decision making, and then toolboxes for treatments that are appropriate at intersections and crossings to make sure that people are able to travel along and across the network safely. You can still hear me. It looks like I might have gotten disconnected from the presentation, which I apologize for, and it will be back momentarily. Gladys or someone at AIM, can you confirm if you can still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you, but we do not see your screen anymore.
Okay, I do apologize for that. It looks like it's connecting me back into the Zoom and hopefully should be there shortly.
If you want, I can share the PowerPoint, Emily. Would that be easier?
Sure, that would be great if you have that available quickly.
Yes, give me just one moment and remind me
Thanks.
the slide number that we were on.
We are actually on slide 17, which is almost the last slide in the presentation, so not the worst time for a disconnection like this to happen.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, it's not in presentation mode though, if you wouldn't mind putting it in for that.
Yes. Here. No.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yes.
Okay. So the plan, in addition to those design protocols, it also includes a trail maintenance plan to make sure that the trails, which aren't maintained the same way that on-street facilities are, make sure that we are addressing those thoughtfully and making sure that they are safe and comfortable to use on an ongoing basis. So managing the data and making sure that we have an accurate inventory of both the trails themselves and the maintenance needs, making sure that they are inspected and evaluated regularly, and incorporating new technology to help make that more efficient. Vegetation maintenance, we heard from the community, is a major concern, and so we've included some recommendations for how the city can manage that effectively, including both traditional things like mowing of grasses and things on the edges of trails, as well as browsing, where we might use things like goats to actually manage vegetation as they browse and trim things and help keep it manageable that way. So if you want to advance to the next slide and then the final one, that is the preview of what's coming in the draft plan, which, as I mentioned earlier, we anticipate being available sometime in the month of February. If you RSVP'd for this meeting this evening, we have your email address and we will email you a link to that plan when it is available. If you did not RSVP, or you want to make sure that you're on the mailing list, or if you have friends or neighbors who you think might be interested, you can subscribe at elkgrovecity.org/trailsplan, and then you'll be on the list to receive that email with that update as well. When the draft plan is available, it'll be posted on the city's website there. And there will also be a link to provide your comments on the draft plan at that time. And we will be taking all of the questions that we received today, as well as the comments on that draft plan, and we will be reviewing all of those with the project team as we work to finalize this plan over the next few months. So with that, we are going to turn it back over to AIM to moderate a discussion, a question and answer session here with the time that we have left this afternoon. We're happy to stay until 5 and respond to as many questions as we can. As Carrie said, we have to respond to questions. If we don't respond to all of the questions today, though, know that we are taking notes, we are documenting all of that input, and we will be reviewing everything with the project team and making sure that we do look at all of that as we move forward towards finalizing this plan. So with that, I will turn it back over to AIM. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. So you did cut out just a little bit on some of your instructions. So I just want to reiterate. We did get quite a number of questions and comments in the chat box. So thank you so much for sharing those with us. I know that Carrie was going through and answering a lot of them or responding to a lot of them, but we'll go ahead and just go through them as we receive them. And Carrie or Emily, you can just respond to some of those comments or questions as we go through them. And then just for everybody else, if questions pop into your mind while we're going through them, feel free to add them into the chat box, and we will hopefully be able to get to yours as well. So with that, Nicole, do you want to start us off?
Yes. So our first question is related to dog parks. The question is, can we possibly have a dog park at or near Don Natoli Park? So many of the dog owners do not adhere to the leash laws. So could a portion of that park be designated for dogs?
So I did put a little comment. Thank you for the suggestion. The parks, of course, are managed in Elk Grove by CSD, and so we can take this as a suggestion and discuss with them about a dog park in that area.
Nicole, I'm going to ask you to put your video off because your connection isn't that strong. So,
okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Next comment or question?
Let's see. Can you share some of the work that's been done by the city's Trails Committee?
I will say I apologize for not thanking the Trails Committee at the beginning. Our Trails Committee is a great advocacy group for biking and walking and making sure that we have a connected trail network in the city, and they've been very active. And we work with them on many different items, and so I did want to thank them for their commitment to this effort with the city, and we will be doing further consultation with them around the plan in the coming months as it gets further developed.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question is, will there be standards that provide for adequate egress and entrance space for three-wheeled recreational trikes?
So I mentioned this as well we do have a design protocols that we're working on as part of this update as well. And so really being very clear, and Emily can talk a little bit more about this, about, you know, what our expectations are related to the design for trails and for bicycle and for pedestrian facilities. We do talk about the width needed, you know, space needed in terms of width to ensure that there's enough room for adult tricycles, for wheelchairs, for bicycle towed trailers. All of that is included in that design standards. Emily, did you want to add anything else?
No, just that's absolutely right. And the design standards addresses not only those three-wheeled tricycles, but also things like cargo bikes and other sort of non-conventional bicycle types that we want to make sure that the trails and the on-street bike network work for all types of bicyclists.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is there a plan to widen the park walking and biking paths? Some of the walking paths in Camden Passage Park, for instance, in the green belt are too narrow and walkers are forced onto the grass or muddy areas.
So that's an interesting comment, and we appreciate that. I think, again, with the parks, we need to work with the CSD on any recommendations or changes to what happens within the parks. And so we can take this with them. There are city design standards related to width of sidewalks and paths and trails. And those are very clearly laid out. With this, for any sidewalks, the design standards that the city has are what is enforced with those. And so this design standard document is really more about the bike trails, the bikeways on roadways, and how will those look. But I appreciate the comment around making sure that there is wide enough and that there are clarity in terms of how people should share those areas.
Okay. Emily, did you have anything to add before we move on to the next question?
Nope, I think Carrie's doing a great job.
Perfect. Our next question is, has any analysis been done to see how many people might commute to Sacramento if there was a dedicated bike trail that was safe, perhaps along the light rail train layout?
So that's a good question. I don't know, Emily, if you know of any, like if you've, you know, with any work that you guys have done with the city of Sacramento, there is some work that the city of Elk Grove is doing with the city of Sacramento in terms of trying to, improve the class 4. And I know there's some questions later on about the class 4 trails, but class 4 bikeway along Franklin Road, which leads up into the city of Sacramento. So they're doing their portion, and we have some within the city limits for Elk Grove. The city is also working on how do we increase interregional connectivity for our trails, right? So that we recognize people should be able to use cycling as a commuting choice. And so how do we make sure our network is sufficient for them to be able to do that? But I'm not sure, and Emily might know anything more about a specific analysis about how many people would take up more bike commuting if there were better connectivity.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any specific forecasts or projections in that regard. But as Carrie said, we worked on this plan to make sure that anywhere we touch at the edges, either the city of Sacramento or Sacramento County, that we were coordinating with those agencies and aligning with the recommendations that we have that cross those jurisdictional boundaries. But for this plan specifically, the focus is within the city of Elk Grove. And something like that, a connection between Elk Grove and Sacramento into the downtown is absolutely something that's worthwhile and worth pursuing. That would likely need to happen on a little bit of a larger scale, perhaps at the regional or countywide level, just because it would include so many different agencies and more area beyond what the city of Elk Grove has jurisdiction over.
And I would just add that the city recently received a grant to study gaps in the Laguna Creek trail system, in a regional trail system, with the plan to make that a completed interregional trail system that would go from the east side of Elk Grove by Grant Line Road all the way over into the boundaries of Sacramento. So we have several projects that we're currently working on. One trail project from Lewis Stein to Bruceville Road and up towards Sheldon that will provide closure of a large gap. Another trail project on the east side of 99 from East Stockton over to the Camden Trail that was completed a couple years ago. And then we also have applied for grant funding to begin working on the overcrossing at 99 at Laguna Creek. So there are a number of projects the city is actively working on, and then we have the grant we just recently received that will study the Laguna Creek interregional trail system and look for additional ways to provide that, you know, off-road connectivity across town and into Sacramento.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, how can the sidewalks in Elk Grove be marked and identified as shared with bicycles, since many are used this way?
So signage is one of the things that we are talking about in the plan, is sort of where is it appropriate? What should the signs be? What should they say, right? What kind of rules do we want to have related to signs? We also need to be consistent with what the state has in terms of when bicycles, when scooters can be on sidewalks versus when they should be in roadways. And so that all needs to be considered, but signs, ensuring that we have appropriate signs and are clear with those, is one of the items in the plan.
Okay. Our next question is, are there any programs or other work being done to make Elk Grove more bike friendly ahead of time, such as educating drivers?
So Emily, we talked a little bit, and if you want to say some more about some of the programs, right, that what we are trying with this plan is not just about the network itself, but also around programs and policies that help support the safety and the ability and comfort that people feel with being able to use the network. Do you want to talk any more about some of the programs?
Sure. So yeah, as I mentioned, the plan does include recommendations for programs that include education, not just of bicyclists and pedestrians, but of drivers as well. Because streets are only as safe as we all share them, right? And so there are a number of recommendations in the plan for things like education, for outreach campaigns or media campaigns through the city that can promote safer behavior and things like that. And a lot of those programs are going to be in that sort of first 5 years push that we'll be recommending, because they are relatively easy to implement. There's a relatively low barrier to implement programmatic things like that compared to some of the larger infrastructure projects. So I absolutely think that some of those programmatic activities around education and outreach to the community are some of the first things that can be advanced out of this plan.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, would the city consider implementing a bicycle repair program to help encourage ridership?
I think that's an interesting idea, and I know that I think the city of Sacramento has done stuff with with Saba in that area, and that might be something we can put in as a potential program within our plan.
Yeah, so certainly looking at something like that, Saba are Sacramento area bicycle advocates, so Elk Grove is within their sort of realm of where they operate and could be a potential partner. There are also some opportunities that we could look at for infrastructure things actual fix-it stations for bicycles that offer tools and air pumps and things like that at strategic locations in the community to offer people either who don't have access to those things at home or who are out in the community and experience a mechanical problem with their bike, to provide those resources to be able to maintain your bike, have a little stand that you can put it up on, and then have those tools available. We could look at those for sure.
Great, thank you. Is it true that all the trails and bike paths will connect to one another in Elk Grove in the future? And are there plans to connect old Elk Grove to the newer parts of Elk Grove?
So connectivity is a big theme. It was highlighted, it has been consistently highlighted by our Trails Committee. I will say they have pushed for improving our connectivity of our system. And it was a theme that we really focused on with this plan and have been looking at. So with our recommendations in terms of the network, we've really been trying to look at how can we ensure that you can get from the east side all the way over to the west side and, you know, north-south, that we can get Old Town better connected to the trail system so that, because, you know, getting through Old Town on a bike right now is probably not the most comfortable thing. And so how do we better connect that in with a trail system so that you can really feel comfortable getting anywhere within Elk Grove. So it is an effort that we have tried to push with this plan. I'm sure it will be a long term because it's probably not something that we'll be able to do just in the next 5 years. It will need to be a continuing effort in future plans as well. Kristen or Emily, do you want to add anything with that?
Yeah, no, I just, again, that, you know, we have a number of projects planned out. Some of them will require grant funding. So we're continuously looking for opportunities to apply for grant funds where possible to help with some of these larger projects that maybe are overcoming some barriers, you know, needing to provide either undercrossings or elevated overcrossings over barriers like railroad tracks and freeways.
Great. Our next question is, are there plans to build walking paths for Bruceville and Bighorn?
If you want me to answer that, Carrie?
Sure, that would be great.
So the city has a project called the Laguna Creek Trail on Bruceville Road Sidewalk Improvements Project that we're in design on right now, trying to clear environmentally. And it runs from on the east side Lewis Stein Road and would provide a trail across to Bruceville Road on the south side of the Laguna Creek, and then continue across Bruceville Road towards the existing subdivisions that are over there and run northward along the back of those, sort of the back, kind of following the shape of the subdivision there, and then providing another connection at the north end out to Bruceville Road. We would, with that project, also be providing some sidewalks along that area. In the future, down the road, Bruceville Road will eventually be widened. So for the time being, we're putting in AC paths instead of full street and sidewalk, concrete sidewalk improvements. So we'll be putting in an AC path that will go from Bighorn along Bruceville Road north to the existing bridge that's, that crosses Laguna Creek there. And that will provide the sidewalk connectivity as well. Parts of that may end up being a widened sidewalk as well, which would allow for some bicycle use along there. Potentially, we're still studying what we can get in there.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, the new Class 4 bikeway on Franklin Boulevard is nice, but I worry the channelizing devices will not last very long. Is there a maintenance plan for these devices?
I think that's a great comment, you know, and we can talk to our O&M staff about that. I also, and just to address, because there were a number of questions in terms of Class 4 bike lanes and the need for cleaning and making sure that they are cleared of debris. And I think that's a good thing as well that we should think about putting into the plan somehow, because it is, as we talked about, we have very little right now class 4. It's our first, the Franklin Boulevard one is our first sort of foray into class 4s. And so as we look to try and expand those, it's good to make sure that we are also ensuring that we are figuring out all of the hurdles that come with those in terms of making sure that they are cleaned and they are maintained and kept up on a regular basis, so they will be utilized.
Okay, our next question is the Elk Grove Unified School District planning to implement any safe routes to school programs? Getting kids to bike safely to school would be a great way to get more cars off the road and help with school traffic.
So the Elk Grove Unified School District has been part of our technical advisory committee for this plan. And so I know they do have a safe routes to school coordinator position. I understand that it's been vacant for a little while. I think at the moment they're looking at how to get kids even being able to go back to school, let alone how to get them to bike there safely. Challenge 1, let's get our kids back into the classrooms. So we have been coordinating with them and working with them on this plan and what does the safe routes to school piece look like, and suggestions for them on that.
There are some other programs too. We have a capital project along Elk Grove Florin Road, which was grant funded through an ATP grant. And there's a non-infrastructure component to that, which we've partnered with Elk Grove Unified School District on, and they'll be putting together programs those will be mainly directed at the 3 schools, the elementary, middle, and high school that are along that corridor. But there are things like that that I know that the district is working on.
Great, thank you both Carrie and Kristen. Our next question is a little specific, but a community member wants to know, many of the existing trails meet streets perpendicularly with large curb drop-offs and crossing points nearby, which requires a difficult turn for larger bikes. Can these crossings be moved to accommodate straight across traffic flow for cyclists?
So I think this is in, Emily, if I'm misremembering something, I think this is one of the things that we are trying to address in our design protocols, and is sort of how do we ensure that when things are, coming together, intersections, and that, what does that look like, and how do we make that most comfortable for both bicyclists and pedestrians and those people who are using them? Is there anything more you wanted to mention on that?
No, just that is a great point, that trails only offer as much connectivity as you can get across those streets when you need to, right? We can't have the network fall apart at those crossing locations. And so evaluating where those crossings are and how well they are working for both bicyclists, and also making sure that they're safe for pedestrians on sidewalks if bicyclists are being asked to share sidewalks at any point, and also making sure that they're visible to drivers and that they're anticipating where those crossings are happening. All of those pieces are definitely being thought about as part of this plan and are important.
Our Trails Committee has been fantastic also about reporting back to us where they see issues similar to that with existing street improvements. So we are continuously looking at target areas they've pointed out and trying to incorporate those in when we have a nearby project, or where we have enough of the similar types of work that we can create a project that's cost effective to bid and construct. And I would just say, if anybody has a specific location of concern, feel free to reach out to us and email it to us, because we do keep that information and try to incorporate it where we can.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, Is there any plan to acquire the CCTC unused rail corridor for a north-south bicycle connection?
So I don't know of any city plan for that. Kristen, you may be more plugged in on that than I am, though.
You'd be talking about basically a rails to trails.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any at this time either. We have a lot of trail projects going on, but not specific to using that corridor.
Thank you. Is there an Adopt a Trail program for litter cleaning?
I don't, Kristen might know, I don't know of any, but I think that is a very interesting idea that we might want to look at incorporating into as a suggestion in the plan.
I'm not sure if there, I think the question is related to like community groups gathering to do trail cleanup. In general, maintenance of the paved part of the trail is handled by the city, and landscaping and things like that. Trash removal are handled by CSD on most of our trails. I do know that our trails committee, and I don't know that it was organized by our trails committee, but there are some members of our trails committee that have been participating with groups that have been cleaning up along our creeks and our trails, going out on their own and organizing working group days. So some of that is occurring, and if you wanted more information, I think you could reach out to Sharon Anderson of the Trails Committee, and she'd be happy to tell you who to get in touch with. She's been participating in that, and I think they even have a Facebook page that they've put together.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, does the city have free bike clubs for youth, or would the city consider partnering with middle and high schools for this?
I don't know of any bike clubs for youth in the city, and but maybe others who are more connected than I am might know of some. But I think that is another interesting idea that could be, that we could talk with the school district about.
There is the Elk Grove Cycling Club. I'm not sure if they have anything really geared specifically towards youth or not, although some of their rides are family friendly.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think some of these we've already answered. Okay, here we go. Does the master plan only consider the streets leading up to school campuses, or also the walkways and roads within a school campus's borders, particularly those that lead to parking facilities?
So this plan does focus on public streets and trails within the public right-of-way for the most part. Looking at recommendations for improved facilities on school campuses is the level of detail that something like a dedicated Safe Routes to School plan would really be the best tool to address. A Safe Routes to School plan has deeper engagement directly with the school communities and can focus more on those both site-specific issues at school campuses, as well as the sort of access on the streets in the neighborhoods around schools. So this plan doesn't make recommendations for things that are on school property, but it does recommend a Safe Routes to School plan as a next step to keep building on this work that would include things like that.
Great, thank you, Emily. I think we have now gone through all of the unique questions that I see in the chat box right now.
We'll give it just another minute in case somebody has,
I will say too, as people might be putting in their last questions, we did record the session. We will be posting the recording recording up on our project webpage on the city's website. We will also be, taking all of the questions and comments that have been posted into the chat so that we can look at those and figure out, which of those we can really help to improve our plan. Make sure that we address those. So, this isn't your last opportunity. You can also feel free to email. If you go to our project website, there is an email address for me, and you're more than welcome to email me with any additional questions that you may come up with, after the meeting is done. I will actually even post my email address in the chat.
Great, thank you, Carrie. So it does look like, I was just making sure because there was a few more comments coming in, but it was people responding to other people's comments. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss any questions. But yes, we are taking notes, and we will be capturing all of the information that was shared in the chat box as well. And we'll be creating a summary of that, and it will be provided to Emily and to Carrie, and we will be posting that also on the project webpage. So you'll be able to see the summary as well. So with that, it's not looking like we have any more questions, and we are coming to Kristen, did you raise your hand?
Yes, sorry, thank you, Gladys. But before you turn off, I did notice that Sharon Anderson put a link to the Facebook group for the trash cleanups. So anybody that's interested could copy that link before we end the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. Yeah, it's been great looking at, there's a lot of people who have a lot of really good information in the chat room. So hopefully all of you have been tracking that as well. So thanks for all of you who helped share information. This is what these meetings are all about as well. So I really appreciate everybody, contributing to this meeting. We did get some comments about it being an informative meeting, so we appreciate that as well. Yeah, with that, I just want to, again, thank everybody. Carrie, did you have any Carrie or Emily, did either of you have any last comments before we let people go to their evening?
No, just to say thank you all. We got great. I am so excited with how many people we had show up for this. And as I said, once we have the full recommendation document available, for public comment, we will send it out to everybody who RSVP'd for the meeting. So you will be getting notification on when that's up for people to review and send us further comments on. But thank you all for joining us.